I'm Lana Anderson, 29, the sort of woman who eats lunch standing by the sink because it's the only spot the sunlight reaches and the counter isn't covered in clutter. It was Tuesday, 11:43 a.m., Bangkok time glowing on the microwave, a plastic bowl of noodles sending up steam, the apartment so silent I could make out my upstairs neighbor's sneeze. Then the phone buzzed with an unfamiliar out-of-state number. I almost ignored it. I should have. Is this Lana Anderson? The voice was polished, clipped, impersonal. This is Tracy from Silver Oak Mortgage Servicing. We're calling about your overdue mortgage payment. We've sent multiple letters. I actually laughed, thin, shaky, and hollow. What mortgage? It bounced off the cabinet and died. The property at 412 Lavender Drive, she said, reading from her script. You're listed as the primary borrower. The current outstanding. My fingers locked around the counter, the skin turning pale. I rent 600 square feet, my mattress still on the floor. No sofa, definitely no house. She hesitated. I heard papers shifting like dry leaves. Could you confirm your birth date and social? I did, because what else can you do when reality slips sideways? She read them back. Perfect match. For a second, everything narrowed, the walls stretching, the air going thin. In my head, a pulse of disbelief kept time. No, no, no. Somehow, 18 months earlier, a mortgage had been opened under my name. 10 months later, payments stopped. Foreclosure already in motion. My voice sounded distant when I asked, "Who co-signed?" The reply came flat and certain. "Gregory Anderson, your father." The noodles sat untouched, cooling to silence. I ended the call, then immediately punched in his number, listening to that same old ringtone that always brought to mind dripping umbrellas and rain-soaked sidewalks. "Lana," he said at last, his tone carrying that faint irritation of someone woken from a nap they never earned. "What's going on? Did you put me on a mortgage?" The question came out sharp. The silence that followed felt physical, heavy, almost tangible. After a beat too short to be natural, he replied, "Why would you think that?" "Because a bank just phoned about a house I supposedly own," I said, my pulse quickening, "and you're listed on it too." This time, the quiet stretched, filled with every old argument and unfinished apology that had ever passed between us, settling like dust. "Listen," he said finally, exhaling. "Calm down. It's nothing serious." A dry laugh broke from my throat. "Not serious? Identity theft and a $500,000 mortgage aren't a misunderstanding, Dad. That's fraud." In the distance, another voice floated through the line, soft and unmistakable. "Rachel, my sister, 5 years younger, forever the storm our mother tried to sculpt into something beautiful. She needed help," he said at last. "You used that old power of attorney, didn't you?" I asked quietly. "The one I signed when I was 18, so you could deal with the student loan appeal." "We handled it," came my mother's voice, soft and foggy against his solid indifference. "You weren't using your credit for anything important." My legs folded beneath me, the chair dragging over the tile with a harsh sound that felt like scolding. Within an hour, I had drafted a fraud affidavit. I froze my credit, filed with the FTC, the acronyms piled up like makeshift barriers against a flood that was already swallowing everything. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I stared at the cold noodles and pictured 412 Lavender Drive, a house I'd never walked through, yet was already sinking into as if the ground had opened beneath me. I thought of Rachel, yoga pants, perfect lighting, the brunch laughter that served as the soundtrack to a life my credit had apparently financed. And then, the quieter version of me surfaced, the dutiful daughter who paid every bill and swallowed every resentment. She was finished. I texted Jenna Price, my college friend turned lawyer, the kind of attorney whose name traveled in whispers down corporate hallways. Identity theft, elder abuse, ugly situation, urgent, call when free. She called back within 6 minutes, listened the whole way through. "Lana," she said, her tone sharp and steady, "we can do this clean or we can do it loud. You decide what's clean. Affidavits, complaint, give Silver Oak a chance to correct their error. If they stall, we go loud. Injunction, discovery, depositions. Either way," she added, "you're not paying their debt." I let out a long breath. "There's something else," I said, hating how familiar the bitterness tasted. I might know someone inside Silver Oak's compliance department. Use that if you trust them. I thought of Alicia, razor-sharp, self-contained, the woman who once shared Sunday coffee with Evan, back when he and I were still planning a future he eventually outgrew. We were never adversaries, just a footnote neither of us liked to reread. When Evan and I became serious, she moved across the country, though apparently not far enough. Then my phone lit up again. Evan, everything okay? He knew most of the story, Rachel's golden pedestal, my role as the family's permanent support beam, but not the parts about debt masked as devotion, or the night Mom smiled and said you're strong, honey, while sliding another bill my way. Not okay, but fixable, I typed back. Call later? Another incoming call. Rachel. I hit decline. If I picked up, she'd sugarcoat the fire and call it a misunderstanding. I'd stopped mistaking politeness for protection. From the top shelf, I pulled down the folder, my paper armor, filled with copies of my birth certificate, the old power of attorney, my spotless credit record, a testament to every moment I'd played the responsible one because no one else would. I slipped in new pages, the FTC theft report, credit freeze confirmations, my notes from Tracy. The plain manila folder grew thick, a quiet weight with its own gravity. The apartment felt too tight for fury, too clean for heartbreak. I stood in the doorway, watching light crawl across the floor like an apology that arrived too late. Then I booked a flight. No warning, no explanations. Just me, a rented Camry, and that folder, silent and dangerous as a fuse. On the plane, I made a list I'd never expected to write. Refinance, Rachel only, my name removed. Legal costs, paid by the forgers. Apology, required, not requested. I slept fitfully, jaw locked tight, and woke to a downpour so heavy it erased the horizon. By the time I reached Lavender Drive, the clouds were thinning, pretending mercy after the wreck. The house matched the picture I'd painted. Wide windows, a lawn so perfect it denied history. Rachel's white Mercedes lounged in the driveway, like something pampered. One knock, and the door quivered. She opened it with her practiced influencer smile, which faltered the moment she saw the folder. Lana, wow, what a surprise. She guided me in, voice drifting through automatic hospitality. Smoothies, cleanses, turmeric. The air smelled like eucalyptus and indecision. I'm here about the mortgage, I said, my tone calm, almost kind. That's the thing about rage once it's filed and labeled. It gets efficient. A small glitch crossed her face. It was a team decision, she said brightly. You weren't using your credit. You didn't ask for it, I replied, stepping into a living room so staged it barely seemed lived in. You took it. Footsteps. My parents emerged. My mother already murmuring apologies. My father setting his face to reasonable, which always meant silence, Lana. I laid the folder on the marble island like a shared confession. Here's what happens next, I said. You refinance. My name's off. You pay my legal fees. Rachel's voice tightened. I can't qualify. That sounds like your problem, I said quietly. Not my consequence. My father crossed his arms. You don't need to be so hostile. Dad, you used the power of attorney I signed at 18 to tie me to a $523,000 mortgage. My tone stayed level. The evidence spoke louder than anything I could say. Mom's eyes filled too quickly, practiced tears catching the light. We gave you life, Lana, and then you tried to lease it out, I replied. Outside, rain began again. Light, steady, rhythmic against the windows like time keeping score. In that pause, I saw the path ahead take shape. Filings, hearings, signatures, a judge's clipped judgment, the clean sound of finality. I gathered my folder. You can speak with Jenna, I said, sliding her card across the island. From now on, she handles this. At the door, Rachel's voice softened into the tone that used to turn me into her silent crew member. You wouldn't let your sister take the fall for this, would you? I opened the door. The air smelled like wet concrete and release. You let me, I said, for 10 months. Outside, the rain eased, light breaking through. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan. Here when you're ready to talk. No fixing, just listening. Then another, unexpected. Alicia, saw your name in an internal alert. I can route this for a clean compliance review if you'd like. Strictly professional. I stared at her words, feeling that old awkwardness edged with something new. Purpose. This was going to be messy before it became orderly. Yes, I typed back. A professional review would help. Thank you. I slipped the phone into my jacket, started the Camry, and steered toward what waited ahead. Neat or loud, Jenna had said. It would be both. By the time I parked across from 412 Lavender Drive, the rain had stopped, leaving the air metallic, sharp with aftermath. I sat for a minute, engine silent, watching the house. 3 stories, cream stucco, black-trimmed windows, the kind that brag about minimalism. Rachel would call it manifested. I called it collateral damage. On the seat beside me, the manila folder rested, dense, deliberate, filled with affidavits, statements, screenshots sharp enough to cut through denial. I wasn't here just to ask questions. I was here to end them. I took a breath, adjusted my jacket, and walked up to the door. Rachel opened the door before my second knock landed. She looked untouched by consequence, hair polished into a perfect wave, leggings that cost more than my entire grocery budget, and that glossy, camera-ready glow that came from treating life like an endless sponsored ad. "Lana, oh my God, look at you!" She flung her arms wide as if we were filming a reunion scene. "I had no idea you were in town." "Surprise," I said, flat. Her gaze flicked to the folder tucked under my arm, the smile faltering for a fraction before snapping back into place. "Come in! Want a smoothie? Pineapple detox with chia." "I'm not here for a smoothie." The air went still, cut clean by the words. Inside, the house looked like Pinterest had staged it. Fake greenery, white-on-white furniture, a scripted good vibes only sign over the couch. I almost laughed. If vibes paid bills, maybe the bank wouldn't be calling me. "You look tense," Rachel said, tone soft, calculated. "Maybe we can talk about what's upsetting you." "What's upsetting me," I said, setting the folder on her spotless counter, "is that a bank just called to tell me I'm behind on a mortgage. This mortgage, in my name." A flicker passed over her face, gone before it could land. "Oh, that. Yeah." She crossed her arms like a magazine pose. "It was a family decision, Lana. We all agreed you weren't using your credit. Mom and Dad said it was fine." "I never agreed," I said. "You forged my name." She laughed, the brittle kind that shatters instead of softens. "Don't make it sound so criminal. It's not like we stole money from you. You're just listed." "That is theft, Rachel," I said evenly. "It's on paper, where crimes live." Her jaw stiffened. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said, opening the folder and laying out the evidence one sheet at a time. Forged signature, expired power of attorney, statements. "I'm being thorough." The door creaked open behind me. I didn't have to turn to know. Mom's voice came first, wavering. "Lana, honey, what's going on?" Dad followed, his words clipped. "Why ambush us like this?" "Ambush," I said, meeting his eyes. "You forged my signature on a $500,000 loan. You made me a criminal on paper." His jaw tightened. "You're overreacting. We were helping your sister get on her feet. By knocking mine out from under me?" He crossed his arms, the Anderson way of declaring the discussion over before it started. "You're still young," Dad said flatly. "You'll recover. Your credit will bounce back." I laughed, sharp and short. "You make it sound like a bruise, not a foreclosure." Rachel's voice edged, defensive. "We thought you'd understand. You've always been the strong one. You've got that job, that boyfriend, that whole stable life." "Exactly," I said, my tone cooling. "That's why you assumed I wouldn't notice until it was irreversible." Dad stepped forward. "Enough. Lower your voice." I turned to him, steady but cutting. "You took a power of attorney I signed at 18 for a student loan appeal and used it to buy your favorite child a house. That isn't a mistake. That's fraud." "Don't say that word," Mom gasped, eyes wide. "It sounds so ugly." "It is ugly." The silence that followed was brittle as glass. Then Rachel tried again, her tone trembling. "What do you want, Lana? Money? I can't refinance now. My credit's wrecked. Maybe if you give me time—" "No." I pushed a document across the counter toward her. "You refinance this property in your own name. You pay every legal fee. You send written proof when it's done." Dad let out a dry scoff. "You're not taking your own family to court." I met his stare, unflinching. "Already hired counsel. Her name's Jenna. You'll hear from her soon." Rachel went pale. "Lana, please, wait." I closed the folder with a crisp snap. You should have waited before signing my name. I turned for the door, but Mom's hand caught my wrist, her eyes gleaming with perfectly timed tears. We gave you life, sweetheart, and then you signed it away, I whispered, freeing myself. Outside, the evening air was cool, edged with rain and clarity. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I slid into the Camry, heart racing, as my phone vibrated. Alicia reviewed the initial file. Something's off with the notary stamp. I'll run it quietly and keep you posted. Then another. Evan, dinner tonight, or do you want space? A faint smile crossed my face. Space tonight. Thank you. One more buzz. Unknown number. Rachel here. Please stop. The bank called. They're auditing the loan. You're going to ruin everything. I stared at Rachel's message until the letters bled into one another. No, Rachel, I thought. You already did. I hit delete. Then I turned the key in the ignition. Neat or loud, Jenna had said. For the Andersons, Neat had left the building a long time ago. 3 days after I'd walked out of that perfect hollow house, Jenna's email arrived. The subject line was a single word. Progress. Attached was a PDF that practically sounded like rustling paper when I opened it. Silver Oak Mortgage's official acknowledgement of my fraud report and confirmation of an internal investigation. Translation, they were panicking, and the reason they were panicking had a name. Alicia Barnes, Evan's ex, my accidental ally. She'd called the night before, her tone low and careful. Lana, this stays between us, she said. I pulled the original loan file. It's a train wreck. What kind of wreck? I asked. The forgery kind, she said. The notary who supposedly witnessed your signature, Margaret Boyd, hasn't worked in real estate for 6 years. She runs a dog rescue in Arizona now. Her license expired long before this loan even existed. My pulse kicked hard. You're certain? Absolutely. That's strike 1 I heard her typing, brisk and efficient. Strike 2. Your income verification. The file says you're a senior software engineer making $147,000 a year. I almost laughed. I've never made more than 63. I'm in logistics. Exactly. The letterhead company on the verification doesn't exist. Total fabrication. She paused, and I could hear another flurry of keys. Strike 3. The payments. Every mortgage payment on record came from an account owned by Gregory and Linda Anderson, your parents. So Rachel hasn't paid a cent, I said quietly. Not one. I leaned back, eyes fixed on the ceiling, the air thick and heavy like a storm waiting to drop. So they used my name, my credit, their money, and Rachel's entitlement to buy a house none of them could afford. Pretty much. I rubbed at my temple. What happens now? Silver Oak will work with your attorney, Alicia said after a pause. They'll hold off foreclosure until the fraud case is settled. But, Lana, what? You didn't hear this from me, but your sister already tried to charm a junior compliance officer into delaying the audit. She said it was all just a family misunderstanding. I let out a slow breath. She never learns when to stop digging. Then she's about to, Alicia replied. After the call ended, I typed out everything she'd told me and sent it straight to Jenna. Within an hour, Jenna had filed an injunction to pause the foreclosure until the fraud investigation ran its course. That single filing meant Silver Oak was legally barred from touching me while the case remained open. Just like that, the current began to shift. A week later, I sat across from Evan in a dim Thai restaurant, idly stirring a bowl of curry that tasted like nothing. He reached across the table, brushing his thumb lightly against my wrist. You've been miles away all night, he said quietly. I'm still processing, I told him. It's like realizing your parents borrowed your life and forgot to return it. He gave a faint, tired smile. You always take care of everyone, even the ones who hurt you. Maybe this time you look out for yourself. I wanted to thank him, to tell him I was trying, but all I could do was nod. His phone buzzed, screen lighting the tabletop. I caught the name before he turned it face down. Alicia Barnes. Our eyes met. He started to explain, but I stopped him. It's fine, I said. She's helping with the case. You sure you're okay with that? He asked. Not entirely, I admitted, but I'm more interested in justice than jealousy right now. That earned a quiet laugh. That's exactly you, he said. The next morning, Rachel called twice, then sent a voice message layered in forced composure. Lana, please call me. The bank's threatening foreclosure. They say I have to refinance or sell. Mom's crying nonstop. You're destroying our family's reputation. Can't you just stop this? I listened once, then forwarded it to Jenna with a note. Evidence of continued manipulation. 2 days later, Jenna texted, they offered Rachel a refinance. She didn't qualify. Credit score 531. I couldn't help a dry laugh. Even payday lenders would pass on that. Next came a short sale offer. Rachel refused. Her words, verbatim, I manifested this house. Manifested a felony, I muttered. Silver Oak's patience ran out soon after. They filed a foreclosure notice, naming Gregory Anderson and Rachel Anderson as the primary defendants, not me. For the first time in months, my name wasn't sitting in the crosshairs. When I read the notice, something deep inside me finally loosened. That night, I stepped out onto the balcony, the rain tapping softly against the glass, city lights stretching and bleeding in the distance. Relief came quietly, heavy and slow, like surfacing after too long underwater. But beneath it lived something else, anger. Not the chaotic kind, but the steady, deliberate kind that sharpens to a point. I wasn't done yet. Jenna called the next morning. The bank's moving quickly, she said. We'll need you at the foreclosure hearing next week. It's mostly procedural, but her voice softened, a smile audible even through the line. I think you'll like the part where they realize they're officially out of excuses. I leaned against the window, the city pale in early light. My heart beat calm for the first time since that call at 11:43 a.m. I'll be there, I said. Wear something blue, she added. Judges like blue. It reads as composed. A small laugh escaped me. After everything, that's what you're worried about? Always plan the optics, Lana, she replied, especially when the guilty ones worship appearances. After the call ended, I stayed by the glass for a long time, staring at my reflection. Tired, a little hollowed out, but upright. I thought about Rachel's curated furniture, my father's cold logic, my mother's trembling apologies, and realized none of them frightened me anymore. If they wanted composure, I'd give them that, but if they wanted silence, they'd get the truth instead. The morning of the hearing arrived heavy and gray, the kind that smelled like wet asphalt and consequence. I left early, dressed in a navy blazer, just as Jenna advised. Calm, deliberate, unshakable. Outside the courthouse, she handed me a coffee. Ready to watch a family implode under oath? She asked. I've been ready since they forged my name, I said. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with the low hum of anticipation. Creaking benches, shuffling papers, fluorescent lights that made everything too bright. 3 rows ahead sat my parents and Rachel, arranged like a portrait of denial. Rachel looked straight out of a reality show, crisp white blazer, lipstick too bold for morning, heels clicking on marble like punctuation. My father had chosen his best suit, posture stiff, face set in that old belief that confidence equaled control. My mother gripped her purse as if it held the power to rewrite the ending. Rachel's gaze found mine. No fake warmth this time, no saccharine tone, just the cold, startled understanding that the script had changed and I wasn't background anymore. Don't look away, Jenna murmured beside me. They need to see who they did this to. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Paper rustled, chairs scraped. Tension vibrated through the room. The bank's attorney, Vanessa Torres, took the floor, her tone smooth, clipped, and utterly unshaken. Your Honor, she began, Silver Oak Mortgage seeks to continue foreclosure proceedings against the defendants, Gregory and Rachel Anderson, due to ongoing default. The plaintiff, Ms. Lana Anderson, has been formally cleared from liability pending verification of fraud. We're here to formalize that release, Vanessa Torres said, every word landing like a hammer wrapped in silk. Precise, deliberate, final. Then Jenna rose. Her voice was composed, but it carried the cold edge of sharpened truth. Your Honor, the record is clear. My client's identity was used without consent. The notarization belongs to a woman who left the profession 6 years before this document was created. The income verification is fabricated. Payment records show the defendants made each payment themselves until they couldn't, at which point they allowed foreclosure to fall squarely on Ms. Anderson's name. This isn't confusion or error. It's calculated exploitation. The judge paged slowly through the file, his expression unreadable, the sound of turning paper louder than the whispers in the gallery. After a long pause, he looked up. "Do the defendants wish to respond?" Rachel stood first. Her voice shook, but in the rehearsed way that invited sympathy. "Your Honor, this house is my home. I built my life there. I thought my sister wanted to help me. I believed it was a family understanding. I didn't realize." "Ms. Anderson," the judge interrupted, "is your name listed on the income verification documents?" She faltered. "No. Did you ever make a payment from your personal account?" "No, but my parents." "And did you obtain your sister's permission before using her credit on a mortgage exceeding $500,000? Her mouth opened, then shut again. "No," she said, barely audible. The judge turned to my father. "Mr. Anderson, did you submit a power of attorney on behalf of your daughter?" Dad cleared his throat. "Yes, but it was signed years ago. We didn't, so it wasn't executed for this specific transaction." He hesitated, then muttered, "No." The judge leaned back, exhaling softly. "Then I've heard enough." No gavel strike came. It wasn't needed. His tone alone carried the finality. "The court authorizes foreclosure against the defendants, Gregory and Rachel Anderson. Ms. Lana Anderson is fully released from liability, pending the conclusion of the fraud investigation. Silver Oak Mortgage reserves the right to seek damages from those responsible for falsified documents." It was done in under 15 minutes. The air thickened with silence. Rachel's complexion drained to paper white. My mother's lower lip trembled. My father's face set like stone, not in remorse, but in anger. When the judge dismissed the room, I rose slowly, feeling the weight of motion and meaning in my legs. Jenna gathered the papers with practiced precision, tucking them neatly into her briefcase before murmuring, "One chapter closed." Outside, the rain had started again, soft, rhythmic, not punishing, but purging. As we descended the courthouse steps, I heard my father's voice behind me. "You didn't have to do this." I turned to face him. "You're right," I said quietly, "but you made sure I didn't have another choice." Mom stepped forward, her expression a portrait of wounded grace. "You've humiliated your sister." "She managed that herself," I replied evenly. "You both just helped her get there faster." Rachel lingered on the top step, streaks of mascara sliding down her face like ink bleeding through paper. For once, she didn't defend, didn't charm, didn't perform. She just stood there, fragile and silent, almost human. Jenna touched my arm. "Come on, before your mother turns this into Act 2. We walked to the car in silence. The windshield wipers moved in slow, steady sweeps as the courthouse faded in the rearview mirror, but the ache in my chest didn't fade with it. "I thought I'd feel vindicated," I said finally, watching the gray world pass by. "But all I feel is hollow." "That's normal," Jenna said. "Justice doesn't always come with satisfaction. Sometimes it just comes with quiet." I nodded, watching raindrops race each other down the glass. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, a cup of tea cooling in my hands, the court order spread across the table, my freedom rendered in legal ink. My phone buzzed, an unknown number flashing on the screen. I didn't need to check it. Rachel's voice came through, thin and ragged. "You really did it," she whispered. "You let them take everything." I closed my eyes. "No, Rachel," I said softly. "You handed everything away." Her voice broke. "You've ruined us." "No," I said. "I stopped you from ruining me." Then I ended the call. The silence that followed wasn't peace, but it was ownership. For the first time since that Tuesday morning call, I felt solid, no longer falling, no longer flinching. But Jenna was right. One chapter was done. The next one, the one with consequences, was just beginning. 2 weeks after the hearing, her email arrived. The subject line read, "Time to go on offense." Inside was a draft of the civil suit, damages for identity theft, credit destruction, emotional distress, and loss of financial opportunity. At the bottom, the total, $215,000. I exhaled slowly, staring at the figure. It wasn't revenge, it was arithmetic. The price of their choices written in black and white. For years, I'd been the one who patched things up, who kept family secrets buried and conflicts quiet. But this time, I wasn't the cleanup crew. I was the reckoning. I texted Jenna one word, "File it." Within 48 hours, the papers were served. No warning, no soft preamble, just envelopes landing like well-aimed consequences on their doorstep. The fallout was immediate. Rachel left a 6-minute voicemail that swung between sobbing and fury. "Lana, how could you do this? I'm your sister. You're really suing family over paperwork? Do you even care what this stress is doing to Mom?" I didn't respond, but I saved it. Jenna called it useful evidence, a living exhibit of guilt and manipulation. Dad's response came by email. "We gave you everything. Is this how you repay us?" I forwarded it to Jenna with the subject line, Entitlement, Exhibit A. The real surprise came 3 days later, from Uncle Rob. I hadn't seen him in years. Mom's younger brother, the quiet one who always stayed out of the family theatrics. His text was simple. "Heard what happened. Coffee this weekend. My treat." We met at a lakeside diner that still smelled of burnt toast and truth. Before the waitress even filled my cup, he slid a thick folder across the table. "Been holding on to this," he said. Inside were trust documents, our grandparents' estate. When they'd passed, the money was meant to be divided evenly among all the grandkids. Only one had been dipping in. "Rachel," Rob said, stirring his coffee. $118,000, all before she turned 25. Your parents told me it was for her career development. She spent it on retreats, cars, and interior design. My throat tightened. I never saw a cent. He gave a dry chuckle. "I know. That's why I kept copies. Figured someday the truth would matter. For the first time, I understood. Not everyone in this family was blind. Some were just waiting for the match to catch." "Will you testify if it goes to court?" I asked. "Gladly," he said. When I told Jenna, her reaction was instant and gleeful. "That's gold. A character witness and financial documentation. We're not just winning, Lana. We're setting precedent." And that's when the offers started. First came a $20,000 settlement with a non-disclosure clause. "No admission of guilt," their lawyer wrote. Jenna didn't even pause. "Add a 0, she said, "or don't bother calling again." Next came 60. The NDA had vanished, but the apology clause was still missing. Jenna's smile was precise, predatory. Then we wait. A week later, Rachel showed up at my office without warning. Perfect hair, trembling lips, desperation polished into performance. People turned to stare as she gripped her designer purse like it might keep her afloat. "Lana," she said, voice cracking just enough to sound human, "please, just talk to me." I followed her into the hallway, keeping distance between us. 5 minutes, I said. Her mascara hadn't budged. The tears knew better than to smear the act. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "You're my sister." "I'm doing this," I said evenly, "because you committed fraud. You destroyed my credit, my name, my stability, and not once did you say you were sorry." She blinked fast, clinging to the script. "I thought you were strong enough to handle it. Dad was wrong." Her breath hitched. "You're suing us. That's cruel." I stepped closer, calm but sharp. "What's cruel, Rachel, is watching your family dismantle your life and calling it love." Her eyes shimmered with those carefully rationed tears. "You wouldn't actually go through with this, would you?" "I already have," I said. "And here's what you need to understand." I let the silence settle until she lifted her gaze. "I don't owe you a relationship. I don't owe you silence. And I absolutely don't owe you forgiveness." Her face collapsed in on itself. "I don't even know who you are anymore." A small, quiet smile tugged at my mouth. "That's the point." Then I turned and walked back to my office, leaving her rooted in the hallway, immaculate and undone. A week later, Jenna called. "Their lawyer just came back," she said, voice edged with satisfaction. $150,000 and a written apology. Voluntary. No NDA. I closed my eyes, the sound of relief settling low in my chest. Not victory, just release. "We'll take it," I said. Jenna nodded. "I'll finalize everything. You'll have the funds within 48 hours. 2 days later, $150,000 landed in my account. Clean, lawful, done. A letter followed soon after, signed by Gregory, Linda, and Rachel Anderson. We acknowledge our role in the actions that harmed Lana Anderson. We regret the pain caused by our decisions and take full responsibility for our lapse in judgment. Short, polished, lawyered to death, but enough. For the first time, The people who had mistaken my silence for surrender finally confessed. In ink. I didn't call, didn't respond, didn't even unfold the page all the way. I just photographed the signatures and saved the image in a folder on my desktop, neatly labeled in case they forget. Then I blocked every number that still had power to pull me backward. Jenna texted, "We won," but that wasn't quite right. I hadn't won, I'd ended it. And sometimes, that's the only version of victory that matters. 3 months passed before the silence stopped feeling like debris and started sounding like peace. It crept in quietly. Mornings without dread, laughter that didn't taste bitter, sleep untouched by phantom rings. The $150,000 sat in my account, untouched except for Jenna's fee. The rest remained, not as revenge, but as proof that I could build something solid without anyone's permission. One Saturday, I signed the papers for a small condo, 2 bedrooms, 1 balcony, peace included. No shared signatures, no borrowed credit. When the pen lifted, something lightened in my chest, subtle but absolute, like a storm realizing it was finished. The realtor congratulated me. I smiled, shook her hand, and thought, this is the first key in my life that no one else can copy. That night, I sat on the bare floor amid unopened boxes and half-assembled furniture. City lights blinked through the window, soft amber against the walls. My phone buzzed. "Evan, proud of you. You did the hard thing. You didn't just win, you changed the rules." I smiled. He'd stood by me through every deposition, every tense silence, never trying to fix what couldn't be fixed, just steady. "Dinner at my place tomorrow," he added. "No lawyers, just us. Wouldn't miss it," I typed back. A few minutes later, another notification. "Alicia. Case officially closed. Silver Oak issued their final report. Fraudulent origination confirmed. Borrower fully exonerated." I typed slowly, "Thank you for everything. You didn't have to help, but you did." She responded almost instantly. "Call it professional redemption. Besides, Evan always said you were the one who actually finishes things." This time her name didn't sting. The triangle was gone, replaced by mutual respect and something close to closure. Later, when the city quieted, I opened my laptop. There was still one thing left. Over the months, I'd kept a meticulous journal. Every call, every lie, every signature, every family favor. That night, I turned it into a post for a financial survivors forum. My parents forged my name on a mortgage. My sister lived in a house I was paying for without knowing it. Here's how I fought back, and what it taught me about love, silence, and the cost of forgiveness. I removed names, blurred dates, stripped away everything but the truth. I didn't write it for revenge. I wrote it for the ones still trapped in family-shaped cages, waiting for permission to walk out. By morning, the post had gone viral. Tens of thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments, a flood of stories that echoed mine. Sons describing parents who opened credit cards in their names, daughters who co-signed loans to help, brothers who'd been told, "You're stronger, you'll bounce back." As I scrolled, the same truth surfaced again and again. Family loyalty, when used as leverage, isn't love, it's control, and sometimes the truest act of love is letting the leash break. A few weeks later, a letter arrived from Uncle Rob, handwritten, plain paper, sincerity too big for fancy stationery. "Lana, proud of you. You didn't just defend yourself, you reminded the rest of us what accountability looks like. Your grandparents would have called it courage. P.S. The old lake house is still in the family trust. Your name's on the deed now. Use it for something honest." I folded it carefully, pressing it to my chest. Honest. It had been a long time since that word fit anywhere near my family. On my first night in the condo, I lit a candle and left the windows open. The air smelled of rain again, softer now, almost forgiving. I thought of Rachel sometimes, not with anger, but detached curiosity. Last I'd heard, she was living with a friend, posting quotes about healing and rebirth. Maybe she was learning, maybe not. It no longer mattered. Forgiveness, I'd realized, wasn't opening a door. For me, it was locking one. Not out of bitterness, but clarity. Some doors simply shouldn't swing both ways. Months later, Jenna came by for coffee. She scanned the place, smiling. "You did it," she said. "And you didn't even frame the apology letter." I laughed. "It's filed away, in case they ever forget." "Good," she said. But now you get to build, not defend. After she left, I stood by the window, mug warm in my hands, watching the city hum, steady, uncaring, alive. This wasn't victory. It was aftermath, the clean kind, where nothing is owed, nothing pending, nothing forged. On the coffee table lay a single key, plain and solid. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's daughter or someone's sister. Just Lana Anderson, unowned, unapologetic, free.